Okay, I want to go over how to paint um, landscapes and things of that nature, but also just some general basic painting things that I've been talking about and shown you previously. Just I think it's just a good idea to just kind of walk you through things. First off, you always want to try and mix your colors with a palette knife and mix them up ahead of time. Um, and I've done a little of that right now. It's okay to alter colors after you get started, but you want to pretty much try to mix ahead. You also want to work from the back forward, from dark to light, etc. And always tone your canvas. And your canvas toning choices don't have to be necessarily related to the painting. They're usually going to be like a brown or whatever, like I've mentioned before. But in this case, I used blue because why not? It's neutral relatively, right? And it can help me with my atmospheric issues, or atmospheric depth, atmospheric perspective here shortly. So, what I've done is I drew it out ahead of time. And what you want to know about canvases and drawing, especially if you're doing something that's got some architecture in it or some straight lines in it, is that the canvas is going to bow as you push against it, especially if you use like a ruler or something. So the more you push, the more it's going to bend and bow, and your lines are going to be warped and annoying to you later on. So be aware that that's happening and look at it from a little bit of a distance, and a lot of times that can help you. So, all right, so I'm gonna have this is a over or a underpass with a bridge, and there's some trees creeping over and some trees behind, and so I've blocked in, with the exception of my trees, I've blocked in my darkest darks first, and you'll see why shortly. Um, but what I mostly want to focus on right now is the sky and how to handle atmosphere, right? So, what I want to do is I'm going to take my paint and I'm going to take a little bit of sky blue, or blue that I've made up for the sky. And what you need to remember though is that um, when you're making a sky, or any color really, try not to just use one color directly out of the tube, but especially for skies, a lot of times you want to take two different blues for various reasons that I won't go into right now. But so I've used a little bit of cerulean blue, Prussian blue, and white, and I'm going to go ahead and I like to paint over shapes. So I'm going to get rid of my tree for right now. I'm going to paint this in. I could probably get away with using a bigger brush. I'm going to paint into this darker mix just a little bit. I made that shape too small to begin with on purpose so that, well, you'll see why shortly. I don't think you saw that, but I just caught my paintbrush. That was pretty fun. All right, so let me keep blocking this in. And once I have this, again, it's super important to tone your canvas always so that things don't show through as much. But also, it really helps in this case as a base for what I'm painting on. And I can and will and should model my sky a little bit more with some white, or with some more white. I could also add a touch of other colors to it if I wanted, but in this case I'm just gonna add a little more white, and use the same brush. And if you put too much in, it's all right. Just distribute it around. So I'm gonna move this around a little bit, see how I like it. And I think that'll probably work pretty good. But really, until you get everything established, you don't know how good anything really looks. So you want to just keep kind of moving forward for now. And we'll go from there. But I also need some sky down in here underneath the tunnel. And I'll put some on the grass area too, and you'll see why in a minute. But all right, so now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and block in my tree, my two tree tops that are showing here over the top of this. The reason why is because while the sky is wet, is a great time to help make them look rounded and also push them back atmospherically, right? So again, I'm going to paint a little further into this shape. And then I'm going to take a brush. You can do it however your style works. You don't have to do things exactly the way somebody else does them. But in my case, I'm going to take, and yeah, because I mean, again, this is not necessarily you have to paint like this. This is just some general advice that I'm giving you. So I'm going to take this green here, and I'm going to kind of twist it and plot it around and allow some of that dark to show through. And I'm going to go up into the sky. I'm going to go over into the sky. And I want to allow a decent amount of that dark to show through, even if it's not purely dark marks, even if it's just simply grayed as a result of the two colors combining, right? That edge just for thoroughness. And I have a tree. Now I can wait and go back over with some brighter colors after it dries, or try it now, whatever works for me. But where it meets the sky color, it's automatically pushed back because of that bluing, right? And so that helps with the depth and it helps with the roundness. Now I'm going to not load up on any more paint, and I'm going to put in this other tree right directly into the sky color. There's a little bit of dark underneath there. But that makes this tree further back, right? And I'm gonna take a little bit of that and then pop it around so it's a little closer than it would have been if I'd have left it. And, you know, something along those lines. A little bit more. I could rob from this tree if I wanted to get a little more value, but I think this will be enough. Down here, same thing, pop in some bushes. And some grass. I'm gonna take the grass, I'm gonna take a little bit of a different green and a little bit of a different yellow. Greens can be very tricky to get variance in, so I'm gonna make sure that I do that. I'm gonna leave that dark for kind of a base of the bush. And there we go, at least to start. And I don't like this bush area down here, so I'm gonna put a little more color on it. If you don't like texture, it's okay, just keep working it. It'll go away. Now I'm going to come back with some more of this warmer yellow. And that's way too much. I should not have done that. Get rid of some of it. There we go. A little better. Still too green. Or too yellow, I should say. But that's okay. Who cares? I can fix it. And, alright, now that I've got that, the next thing I'm going to roughly block in is the bridge itself. So in this case, I want kind of a mostly like a gray for the bottom, and then bottom and inside, and then I'm going to take and have like a essentially like a reddish coppery top. I guess it wouldn't be copper, but all right, so once I have my gray, which I'm going to add a little bit of color to it. I don't think I had enough, and I don't like what I have because I do have to battle that dark. So that's going to be a factor. Grab a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I know you guys can't see it. That's okay. You don't need to. All right, so now because I got the blue, I need to keep that in mind with my mixtures. So I need to make sure that I know that that dark or that wet blue and that dark color are going to both contribute to my color mix, and I want to think about that as far ahead as I possibly can. It's, you know, not possible to know exactly what something's going to look like until you've done it a bunch of times, but for the most part, you can try to guess. And so this is coming out a little on the green side, but I think it'll be all right. So, I'm gonna brush this in. But for right now, I'm going to only do a couple specific things on purpose. I'm going to block in the bridge itself and these lines where the vaulting kind of would be catching reflected light. I'll show you what I'm doing with that in a minute. And again, I like to paint over shapes. So I'm going to paint over this tree temporarily for now. I want to just do this kind of quick. I'm not trying to do an awesome painting here. It's always better to paint quickly and then make it awesome after you get everything established. Anyway, but in this case, I'm really not trying because just a quick little demonstration, more for technique than anything else. All right, so now I have that down, and obviously over time I would put more indication of light, shadow, and things like that. But I might be able to do some of that now, but I don't know for sure. So I'm gonna load my brush up on the bridge color, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come through and I'm going to blend into the dark. And I'm going to start down here because there would be reflected light off of the concrete below. In this case, I probably am going way too light from what I wanted. So what I'm going to do with that then is that means I will not take any more paint off of the palette. So I'm just going to steal from what's laying around here. And see what happens with that. Now, definitely not as dark as I wanted this to be, but I can always darken it with more paint. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this grayed up stuff. I'm going to make a shadow line from the edge of this architectural element here and just kind of pull that down. Always remember, it's okay for your things to be a little out of focus at first. You go back later and you can fix them as you go. So I'm going to add an architectural element here, just like a little bit of a niche or a raised indication. All right, now I'm going to tone this down. This is a little too bright, just by taking the paint that's on the brush. And there's, you know, the beginnings of all that stuff. I think for the sake of speed, I'll go ahead and just do this whole bridge this color. That'll probably also help me adjust my darks a little bit, but we'll see as I go if I decide to even bother with that. So cleaning up those trees, pushing them back. Just go right along there. I'm gonna kind of scrub my brush off sort of here. You'll see why in a second. So as I'm doing this and I'm going into there, that means less paint is going to mix into these dark areas, so I can have a better transition to shadow. And again, I can always should reestablish my darkest darks later on. Brightest brights and darkest darks are usually what you want to add last, at least in my world, in my opinion. All right, now technically, I want to grab more of the bridge color and put that in up here. Now, if this were one of my paintings where I'm really trying to do what I want to do, I'd be grabbing some colors and popping them around, and maybe I still will. But I don't want to make this too long. But now though, I need to put in a tree color, right? So I need a tree that's going to go across the across the sky there. And actually I do two different ones, and just for the sake of whatever, I will do the stereotypical old dead tree, right? Or at least no leaves on it. One of the things that drives me nuts is trees that are flat, because trees aren't flat. They're going to have branches that go off in different directions. And then the other thing that drives me even nuttier is when trees have what I call chunky finger branches, right? And even if you don't have small brushes, there are ways to avoid that, and I'll show you in just a second here. Now, the other thing though is trees are not always brown, right? Trunks of trees. They're often darker than we realize, grayer than we realize, greener than we realize. They're rarely ever like a stereotypical one type of brown, right? So, however, with that said, you can kind of start that way and then just keep doctoring them. So by painting our trees directly into the sky, it's going to allow us to make softer transitions out to our thinner spots of our branches, but also give more depth to the tree itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to grab my tree color. Which is mostly brown, but it's a little bit of a dark grayish, brownish color. And I'm going to plot the tree back in, and I'm not going to worry about getting it super dark right away. But I just want to make sure that my tree and its parts basically get narrower as they go up, and they don't spontaneously somehow get wider, okay? Trees don't do that, so this is not correct, and the only way they do that is if it's a foreshortening issue, right? But we'll go over that in a second. Now in this case, I like this curve, but I don't like how it goes like that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come back out like this with this tree. Fix that. And then, before I get too far with anything, I'm going to go ahead and come across this way with a branch as well. However, I want to go into this green, which is fine because that will make these two trees look a little bit different from each other. They won't exactly be the same brown. So I come up like that, and I kind of ease off the pressure to get the branch to kind of thin out and also show a little depth as it gets towards the end of the stroke. So not the smallest brush in the world, but still getting relatively decent results from it. All right, now I just kind of did it just there, but now I can put more life and uh, variation along the duration of the branches simply by taking a brush and I can go back and I can put some more of the base brown down in certain spots. Then I'm going to take some of what's left and just go right up into the thing. Because every time I put variation into this, every time I do that, it's then causing the tree to have more depth, look more realistic, etc. You don't have to have as many branches as the real tree would or a real tree would, but you want it to have a little bit of variety. So now I'm going to take some blue and I'm going to put a little bit of blue in where I would want some indication of shadows to be along the branches. Little pops. One went a little too wide. There's a little fold in the canvas right there. And again, as I start to run out of paint, I just go ahead and put right into the sky there for branches and branch related details. Because everything I do is going to make it, potentially anyway, it makes it stronger and stronger. So now that I got a lot of that done, now I could go back, I could go to this tree a little more if I needed to, but I'm going to take a little bit different blue just so there's a little bit of variety in the two trees still. And I'll put a little bit here and there on it. And I want to come back across that branch. There we go. But you don't want your trees or anything too warm if it's really far back, right? Nothing should come forward. Even if it's a warm color, it needs to stay back, right? And so I can go back to that in a minute. But right now, I'm going to take some lighter colors, some warmer, lighter colors, and kind of change this painting a little bit. I'm going to take some white and some orange, mostly white. And then I'm going to go to the branches and see what happens with that. And I'm going to really pay attention to the light source this time. I think I could have gone a little more with a yellow. Probably should go. I'm going to grab some yellow right now. Just get it over with. All right. And I think you can kind of see what's going on there. And now I'm going to take a little more of these same colors, a little yellow, a little orange, not as much white. And I'm going to see what happens when I put it on the top of this ridge of this bridge. Nothing good. But I'm going to be patient. And I'm going to grab more orange. And I'm going to stop and skip some spots here and there. And then I'm going to put another ridge right about here. So this is a highlight ridge as opposed to a shadow ridge. Put it in kind of nasty. I'll fix it in a minute. A little bit of orange here. And then I'm going to now grab a little bit of blue and red and do some weird stuff. So I'm going to take a little bit of ultramarine with a little bit of cerulean, and just because a little bit of Prussian too. And I'm gonna pop it into these dark places. And you might not even be able to see what I'm doing or any effect of what I'm doing. And that's okay for right now. Just realize that color can be fun, man, if you let it be. And then take a little of it there. All right, now I'm going to take a little bit of alizarin crimson. I'm going to pop it into other spots along those same dark areas. Try and keep it mostly towards the front of these tunnels. And then take a little bit, put it back there. There we go. If you hold your brush differently, especially flatter, you can get more paint to come off onto the canvas without pulling up a previous layer. Back to that mix from earlier, or that shape I made earlier. All right, now this is kind of where things can get pretty cool or scary depending on what's going on. Now I'm going to go back to my original cement color, and I'm going to work it into some of these areas that I just made and clean them up a little bit, but blend at the same time. So there's that. And then so now I want to just softly, well, let me put a little more of this in up here. And then this ridge here. Again, I can fix the tree later if I mess it up at all. Now again, now I want to slow back down and I want to clean up my edges really nicely. And in this case, I want to come into my shadow a little more to clean that up. Blend it. If it gets a little muddy, you can use that as a transition. You don't want it too muddy. And something like all this, right? And then a little bit of variance is always good. All right. It's pretty wobbly from the bow and the canvas, and they need a little more work, but it's getting there. And I'm not going to finish this piece. I'm going to stop it pretty shortly here, but I can work these in a little bit more. I can go darker down here now if I want to, whatever I want to do. But I like to just jump around constantly. It's a good idea. But let's just see what happens if I take a little bit of white to this outer edge right here. Oh, forgot that yellow was on there. I think I like it. Oh, don't like that though. All right, so that's about enough for now. There's no need to finish the painting in front of you. You can figure it out on your own, because that's really what painting is. I mean, yeah, it's nice to be shown how to do some things, but ultimately you got to figure it out on your own. You've got to figure out what marks you make, how exactly I make the marks that I'm telling you I make, things like that. I can't totally spell it out for you. But the biggest thing is that you always have to remember, whether you like hearing it, whether anybody likes to hear it or say it or not, and that is, you're not going to be as good as you want to be, probably ever, but you're definitely not going to be as good as you want to be right away. And I don't mean that in a discouraging way. I'm not trying to say that you're never going to be good. We just have high expectations of ourselves a lot of times, and we have to realize that we're probably better than we realize. But if we constantly think that we have to achieve something specific in our heads, we can't get there, because we don't even really usually understand what it is, right? So anyway, there you go. I could keep playing with this thing forever. I mean, it's a painting and I'm a painter, right? So, oh, yep, I'll fix that too. So, all right, I'm gonna play with this for a second more and then I'm done. Well, done enough for now. Yeah, I don't like that either. What happens if I take this dirty stuff right here? There we go. All right, there you go. Have a good one.